Welcome in, Dween Nation. We are the Dween Sports Podcast, and we are just about to get started. But before we do, we'd love if you could like, comment, subscribe, and share so we can continue to be your fantasy sports podcast. Thanks for being part of Dween Nation, and enjoy the show. Welcome in, Dween Nation. This is your host, Justin Pies, alongside Genoa Agudelo, and we are talking wide receiver rankings for the 2025 fantasy football season, our top 10 and half PPR leagues. Super excited because we're so close to draft time. I think our draft is in a week and some change. But obviously there's drafts all the way up till kickoff on September 4th. But we're here to help you guys with your drafts. These are just the top 10, but keep checking out all of our other stuff, TikTok. We have more rankings, more discussions on there as well as the YouTube, because we also have our running back rankings out, tight ends, quarterbacks. We're going to have sleepers, busts, my guys. All of it's still on the way, or it's already there. So keep checking us out. But yeah, before we dive into it, how we doing, Genoa?
Yo, Dween Nation, Justin. Hey, this is literally the most important spot now. It used to be running backs as far as fantasy, but now it has transitioned over to wide receivers, where this is actually, the position that you got to ace. And these are the positions now that are being picked early in the first round now. And I mean, Justin, I'm so excited to get into it. I mean, there's a ton of wide receivers. So for my list, there were some people, I wasn't able to get in, because it's so stacked. I mean, it goes all the way down to 15, 16. And I know as well for yours, but I'm excited to get down and talk about it because, man, this is going to be such a deep list, and all these wide receivers are going to absolutely perform this year for sure.
Yeah, you're right. It's really been a changing of the guard over the last 5-6 years with just wide receivers taking over. I mean, Jamar Chase, obviously Triple Crown winner last year, was the highest scoring player, period, last year, even over Josh Allen, even over Lamar Jackson. And then obviously you've had Ceedee Lamb the year before that be the guy. Justin Jefferson the year before that be just phenomenal. And then they still are phenomenal, but we've just been seeing so many points scored. Last year, obviously, we see the introductions of guys like Brian Thomas Jr., Malik Nabers. It continues to happen, and they continue to get more important. So let's dive into our top 10 here, and we start on the same page with Jamar Chase. Not much more you can say besides what I already said. Triple Crown winner last year. The same team is in place on a team that has one of the worst defenses, if not the worst defense in the league. They're going to have to throw it a bunch, and his quarterback is one of the best in the league in Joe Burrow. Nothing much past that.
Yeah, Justin, literally one of my favorite players in the league. Not to mention, this is one of the best connections in football, dating back to that 2019 LSU team with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. I mean, they're always in sync. They've made a Super Bowl together. They've won playoff games. And so, hey, why not? They're going to dominate another year. They got the age, the youth. I mean, there's a no-brainer that this guy is going to be number one for sure.
Yeah, I completely agree. And yeah, he's my number one overall pick. I believe he's also yours.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, what else can you say about him? He's just a beast. He's probably one of the only receivers that can get you 50 points in a game.
Yeah.
Like that happened, I think, twice last year, which wins you a week automatically. So I think that he's great, and you just can't pass him up at 1 overall. We'll move to 2 with Justin Jefferson, his former LSU teammate. Obviously, last year there were the doubts. Justin Jefferson's got Sam Darnold now. We can't trust him. And that didn't matter. He ended the season as the wide receiver 2 overall. He's got the little hamstring issue in camp. I don't expect that to change too much. As long as he comes back within the next week or two, I'll be fine with him. But yeah, what are your thoughts with Justin Jefferson here too?
You know what, Justin? I think I'd have him at number 1 if it wasn't for his quarterback situation. Last year, I'm not lying to you. I promise when I say this, I was actually a fan of Sam Darnold. I really thought that this was going to work out in Minnesota, and it pretty much did. I mean, Justin Jefferson had a really good year. This year, like we've talked about it, I'm very skeptical. In fact, it's one of my top 5 things looking into the season that I'm really going to be eyeing on. It's this Minnesota Vikings offense. More specifically, J.J. McCarthy. How strong is his arm going to be? Can he throw deep? Because Jefferson is going to get open almost 80% of the time. This guy's a beast. And if it wasn't for his quarterback, if they brought back Kirk or they kept Sam Darnold, I would probably have – but I have these two flipped because Jefferson can really do as well as Jamar as well. But the quarterback situation is the only thing that's holding me back there. Other than that, he's a stud. I think he's the consensus number 2 pick overall unless you get Saquon at 2. But this guy's for sure gone by 3rd or 4th pick.
Yeah, no, I think you hit it on the nose because I do think Justin Jefferson is the best wide receiver in the NFL over Jamar Chase. But you're right. The only thing is you got Joe Burrow throwing the rock versus guys like J.J. McCarthy, Sam Darnold, even Kirk Cousins in the past. But you're right. That's the only margin we're talking about here. I do see them at different tiers. I'm for sure going Jamar over Justin Jefferson. Unlike when we talked about the running backs, they were like really close with Bijan and Saquon and stuff like that. But yeah, you can't go wrong with the best wide receiver in the league, no matter who his quarterback is. So Justin Jefferson at 2. We'll move to 3. Ceedee Lamb. This is, the 2023 wide receiver 1 on the season. Last year, obviously, it dipped because Dak Prescott got hurt mid-season. And Ceedee Lamb, you could just tell he was playing through injury last year. I feel like every big catch, he'd be down for a few seconds. You'd be like, give him a second because he's trying to do it all for this Cowboys team. But this year, obviously, comes into a healthy season. New head coach, who I still think is a really solid, play caller. Obviously, son of Marty Schottenheimer, a guy who was there with him, last year as the offensive coordinator. And yes, they bring in George Pickens. But for anybody who is worried that George Pickens is going to be a negative to Ceedee Lamb, you are wrong. You are wrong, unfortunately, and that's okay. Just listen to us. Pick Ceedee Lamb in your first round and be happy. Now, and with Dak Prescott, every year he's been healthy. He's been a top guy in the league at the quarterback position. I expect the same thing to happen with Ceedee Lamb. I guess the only half concern I have is they actually start their season at it's a really tough schedule. They start at Philadelphia. That's a tough matchup. You got to go against Chicago. You got to go against Green Bay. You got to go against New York, the Jets. You got to go against Denver, all within the first 8 weeks. So it's tougher. It's tougher. But he's also Ceedee Lamb. He is matchup proof. Of course, you would rather have him play teams like Cincinnati and Atlanta and Carolina. But, that's why he's probably at 3 here because, he's shown receiver 1 upside. He is one of the best in the league. He's got a really good quarterback throwing in the rock. I don't worry about George Pickens. I think it actually could even help him at the end of the day. So Ceedee Lamb, wide receiver 3 overall.
Yeah, Justin, I mean, honestly, I was a little low on Ceedee Lamb, but then when training camp started, he pretty much is like, bro, whenever Dak Prescott plays and we're all healthy, I'm a top receiver. Like, you can see what I can do. And I was like, you know what? You're right. Let me bump you up in my rankings. And so that's why I have him at 3rd here. And I think that, yes, their schedule is a little tough. But hey, Justin, I think that there could be a chance where there's some games they're playing from behind. Like, for example, week 1 in Philadelphia. Maybe Philadelphia is rushing off that Super Bowl victory and they go up 17-0 at half or third quarter. And Dak Prescott is kind of like, okay, we need to get a drive going. Here's a catch, 3 or 4 on one drive to Ceedee Lamb. Maybe it hits him up on a touchdown. Maybe it's a thing where it's kind of like a garbage time thing. I do love, Justin, one of my favorite things about fantasy is whenever, 1, the Cowboys are home, and 2, when they're down at home. So, like, when they play the Packers week 4, or maybe they play a Washington week 7 and they're kind of playing from behind. Week 12, they're home with Philly. Thanksgiving Day, they're home with Kansas City. Games like those, Justin, where they could potentially go down 17-20. Dak Prescott and this offense is not going to give a single handoff to any of those running backs. In fact, he's going to be throwing it to Ceedee and George Pickens, which is money, because I love those Thanksgiving games when the Cowboys are going against competitive teams, because that means Ceedee Lamb all day, every day. And like I said, Justin, when the Cowboys are down and they're home and they got Dak Prescott's going to have probably 120 yards in 1 quarter with 2 touchdowns. I mean, he could have 1 half of like 100 yards, 2 picks, but then the second half when they're down 20 points or something, I mean, he's still going to throw it, and he's going to end with 400 yards, 3 touchdowns. A game example, if you can look it up, it was the Packers and Cowboys wild card round a few years ago, Jordan Love, and they were down like 31-0 at halftime, but still Dak Prescott's throwing. Ceedee Lamb's getting there, and it's just those games at home, and all those games are going to happen. Something's going to happen along the year where they're going to be down. Ceedee Lamb's the guy, and there's no doubt he's the number 3.
Yeah, and you're right. The defense is actually worse this year, and that only is a good thing for Ceedee Lamb and this Dallas Cowboys offense. They're going to need to throw it a lot more, so I completely agree with you there. Ceedee Lamb at wide receiver 3. We'll move to wide receiver 4. Me and you have these flipped, so they're pretty close. We're kind of nitpicking at this point. You have Nico at 5. I have Puka at 5, and we both have these guys here at 4. For me, Nico, when I talk about Nico, last year, before his injury, the first 4 or 5 weeks, he was the wide receiver 2. He is clearly C.J. Stroud's number 1 target. And with the new offensive coordinator, Nick Caley, I expect this offense to take a step forward. Yes, they have Christian Kirk and Jaden Higgins, Schultze, but none are going to take too much from him. And in fact, it just might help him. If they are good, that's only going to help Nico Collins. He does everything. I know he's an outside wide receiver, but he can play in the slot. And I'm really happy with him this year. I think if the Texans take any step forward, he is in line to be a top guy in this league. He might be, he might get 150, 160 targets this year. He's that good. He really broke out with CJ Stroud in 2023, and they both know that last year was a disappointment, and they're going to want to step up this year.
Yeah, Justin, both of these receivers had kind of a similar year last year. I mean, they were pretty good. Then they missed a big chunk of the season, and they both ended up with the same kind of stats there. Nico played 12 games and barely hit 1,000 yards. We're talking about 1,006 yards. So 6 yards over 1,000 yards. And Puka, was 10 yards short of 1,000 yards. He also played, I want to say it was only 11 games there. I think he played week 1 and he got hurt. He was out for like 7 weeks, came back, and he was still able to get, 1,000 yards or pretty close to 1,000 yards. Their touchdown count was pretty much kind of, not the same. Nico ended with 7, as Puka ended with 3. But, Puka still had a monster game. I want to say it was week 14. I was against the Bills. And, I think that both of these receivers are going to bring back what they were in 2023, where they were both top receivers in the game, both kind of surprises in the league. And so I think they're right here perfectly. Stafford's going to find Puka a lot. CJ's going to find Nico a lot. So it's a no-brainer that these guys are number 4.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. My take on Puka Nacua is he has a great quarterback in Matthew Stafford. In 2023, obviously a fifth-round rookie, became one of the best receivers in the league. He showed it last year, even in the games played. He missed a bunch of games due to injury, but in the games played, he was wide receiver 5 in points per game. So he showed, even coming off of an injury, he was a really, really great play. And for those worried about Devontae Adams, don't be. This is a similar discussion, I think, with the Ceedee Lamb. They bring in another really capable wide receiver too. They think it's going to eat into his workload. No, it is not. I guarantee you that. And with Puka, he's at the prime age for a breakout to be a top number 1 wide receiver. I had this stat on a TikTok talking about Puka in particular, where 5 of the last 9 wide receiver 1s overall were between the ages of 23 and 24. Had a Pro Bowl quarterback at the helm. That is Puka Nacua. We've seen him be a top guy in this league. Cooper Kupp leaves. Demarcus Robinson leaves. So they have, actually a substantial amount of targets that are vacated going into this year. Now, there is the concern of Matthew Stafford. If I have a healthy Matthew Stafford, I bump Puka up even past CeeDee Lamb, even past Justin Jefferson. I'd have him at wide receiver 2 if I wasn't worried about Stafford. But he does give me some concern that things could drop just a little bit. Because I do think, even with Jimmy Garoppolo, I think Puka Nacua is a top 10 to 12 wide receiver for fantasy. Now, with Stafford, though, it jumps up tremendously. And that's kind of where I stand with Puka Nacua. We'll move to 6 here, where I have Drake London, and you have Amon-Ra St. Brown. Since mine is more of the bold take here with London, I'll start us off. Now, I have a lot of high hopes with Drake London this year. Last year, he stepped up and really broke out. It was a lot with Kirk Cousins, but even with Michael Penix Jr., those last 3 games, he had the one phenomenal game with 35 points against the Panthers. But technically, in those games, in Michael Penix starts, Drake London was the wide receiver 1 overall. And you move into this year, and the same argument I just told you with Puka Nacua, it applies to Drake London. He's in that prime age at the wide receiver position, 23, 24 years old. He's actually, he'll go into this next offseason probably looking for an extension from his rookie deal because he's got 2 years left. So I expect big things. And then the unfortunate news that Darnell Mooney will actually probably miss some time to start the year. He's going to be the main guy. I expect actually a big year for Michael Penix. I'm very high on him this season. I know he doesn't offer rushing upside, but that only helps London because he's going to be tossing the rock a bunch. We saw it at the end of the last year, and I only expect this offense to improve with another year with Zach Robinson calling plays. Michael Penix was the backup all offseason, even into the over halfway through the season, and so now Penix is their guy. He's the guy that they decided to pick at 8 overall last year, to the surprise of every single person on the planet. But it's going to work out for this Falcons team, and I expect London, who is a big guy who can get a lot of touchdowns, but also a guy that can get a lot of volume. I'm really high on him this season.
Yeah, Justin, you're starting to help me. You're starting to convince me a little bit. I'm not going to lie, because I do remember there was a Sunday night football game, and I think it was one of Penix's first starts. I think his first start came against the Giants, but that week later, Sunday night football in Washington in overtime, he had 13 targets, 106 yards. The next week, that game you talk about against Carolina, he had 18 targets, 10 catches, 187 yards, and 2 touchdowns there. Kirk Cousins was pretty bad last year. He was not impressive at all. In fact, he was a dud last year. And Drake London was still 4th overall, leading the league in receiving yards, 1,200 yards, nearly 1,300 with 9 touchdowns there, Justin. Very impressive. This year he gets a full training camp with Michael Penix, a full season with Penix behind. And honestly, Penix is actually a really good pocket passer, really good. When he was at Washington State, he was really accurate. He shredded my Longhorns in the semifinals, and then somewhat of a, he kind of got dinged up in that championship game against Michigan, but still, this guy can really throw the football. And I think him and Drake London have something intact, and it's going to be a thing that they're going to experience all year there. And I feel like, you know what? I think he's a good second round, but if you can get him in the 3rd round, Justin, you think
I don't see it happening, but that'd be nice.
I do somewhat like the schedule. He gets Tampa week 1. He got Minnesota in a potential shootout. You get Carolina week 3. And then you got Washington week 4 before you go on a bye. So I do like the Falcons schedule. And I love Drake May. I'm going to go right into and talk about Amon-Ra St.Brown. I'm slightly concerned. We're all slightly concerned about Detroit, right? Because of the coordinating change. But I do want to remain positive. Amon-Ra was pretty good. And a team that has a ton of mouths to feed. Jameson Williams did also hit 1,000 yards. But Amon-Ra St.Brown, 1,200 yards with 12 touchdowns there. I do like him this year to remain, as one of the top receivers in fantasy. Schedule's a little tough in my opinion. You get Green Bay, you get Chicago, which I think you have a great game. You go to Baltimore on a Monday night, and you get Cleveland. You get Cincinnati and Kansas City in those following weeks. I think he should have a pretty good year. I think he'll have a better second half of the season than he will first half. But other than that, Justin, he's been really good since he's gotten in the league. I mean, he can name every receiver that was picked before him. And I think that him and Jared Goff have a really good rapport together. I'm really curious to see how he gets involved with his offense. But Justin, in his 4 seasons in the NFL, even his rookie year, he's been pretty good. I mean, only 1 year, his rookie year, he didn't hit 1,000 yards. So, last year he had 1,200. The year before he had 1,500. So, in 4 seasons, Justin, he already has 33 touchdowns. So, I do think that, he's going to remain one of the top receivers in the league. And so, I'm curious to see if anybody's going to pick him in the 1st round this year. But I do think that he's a fantastic 2nd round pick.
Yeah, my take on him is that he's been uber reliable, super reliable for your team. If you picked him in the 1st round, you were happy with it. You definitely were never disappointed, especially if you were able to take him at like the wide receiver 5 to 6 area, because he was the wide receiver 3 last year, wide receiver 5 in points per game, but wide receiver 3 in total points for the wide receiver position. This year, though, I'm unfortunately on the train where I do think the Lions take a step back. I think just about everybody besides Jahmyr Gibbs I'm somewhat worried about. He does fit the bill, especially with having that 1st round grade or ADP where people are just picking. He's going at the end of the 1st round still in drafts. He's a guy that I'm not going to jump on there. He's going to need a lot of volume to really pay off. And I think with everybody thinking that Jameson Williams is going to take a step forward and Laporta's got to do better this year and Jahmyr Gibbs is getting more usage as a receiver and as in the backfield, that doesn't equate to Amon-Ra still getting that same volume to me, especially with I think that the efficiency is going to go down for this team. So I do have doubts with Amon-Ra St.Brown. It hurts to say that because I actually love cheering for him. Obviously, yes, he wasn't one of those high draft picks. And he went out and showed out. If you watch the receiver show on Netflix, he's just seems like such a good guy. I'm cheering for him. He's on a great team that's fun to cheer for. But I do think the team takes a step back, and with that, I do think he takes a little bit of a step back. I still have him in my top 10, but I see him in the wide receiver 8 to 10 range out of this position here. We'll move to 7 though. We will be back on the same alignment here with Malik Nabers. Obviously, he played in 15 games last year and had 170 targets. Holy guacamole. That is literally 2nd in the league behind Jamar Chase. Only 2 targets behind Jamar Chase, the guy who, obviously lit the league on fire last year, was the Triple Crown winner. Well, Malik Nabers had just a couple targets less than him. And I expect him to be obviously the main focus of the Giants passing attack. And they get an upgraded quarterback. You go from Daniel Jones and Tommy DeVito to, Russell Wilson or even Jameis Winston. Imagine if you get some Jameis Winston action. I will be over the moon, and that's why I have him here at 7. Now, I guess really the only negatives I have is I didn't realize this, but he has had a toe injury for the last 4 to 5 seasons. And this year, but for some reason, this training camp, it has been nagging just a little bit more than usual. We've heard a little bit more about it. And he's also come up with a shoulder injury. Now, these are not serious injuries, but they are worth monitoring as we get closer to drafts. But, his situation is just perfect. And I expect the offense to just be solid. They will be down in games as per usual, and they're going to need to throw the rock a bunch. And that's why I do like Malik Nabers, a guy you can get at the end of the first round of your draft, and a guy who has tremendous upside, where I actually think he has the ability to be the wide receiver one in fantasy compared to guys like Amon-Ra, who we just talked about. I think Nabers has higher upside, but I do think Amon-Ra is a safer pick. That's kind of how I view it. How do you view Nabers?
Yeah, Justin, I think this is a great spot for Malik Nabers. I mean, you got Russell Wilson or Jameis Winston throwing you the football. Not to mention, Jackson Dart has been impressing in the preseason there. So I feel like one of those three quarterbacks is definitely going to be looking for him. And this is a must-prove year for Daboll, who needs to get this offense rolling. And Nabers, I mean, he's an LSU guy. I talked about this on a TikTok a month ago, and I think that he's going to be phenomenal this year. I mean, this is a guy that had a great championship week performance, and I think he's going to improve there. And so, for me, I love him here at 7. I think he can definitely be a candidate to lead the league in receiving yards. And so I'm excited for him, man. If Jameis Winston hops in there for a couple games, I mean, watch out. He's going to be money.
Yeah, and I mean, what else is going on in this receiver room? They still have Wandale. They still have Darius Slayton. They still have Jalen Hyatt. They still have Amir Smith-Marset. The only not big, oh my gosh, not at all. The only addition they have is little Jordan Humphrey from the Denver Broncos and Cam Scatterboo in the draft to the running back position. But really no additions that are going to threaten Nabers' opportunities. So I think he's possibly the best wide receiver in fantasy. He has that upside to me. There are some, negatives with, obviously the team he's on, and he still doesn't have the best quarterback. He has just an improvement at quarterback, but that's kind of where we stand with Malik Nabers. We'll move to 8, where I do have Amon-Ra there. We've talked about him at depth, but I'll throw it to you. What are your thoughts with BTJ?
Justin, I love BTJ this year. I mean, he's literally had a fantastic rookie year. He was money all along the way last year. And I think that he's going to continue to keep going. Even if Travis Hunter does take a majority of his snaps on offense, I do think that BTJ is still going to be the top guy there in Jacksonville. I think that, it's going to take some time for Travis Hunter to work his way up and being a top guy in his own. But I think that BTJ is not going to miss. He's not going to miss a step at all. I mean, 1,200 yards last year, 10 touchdowns. He had an 85-yard touchdown. I mean, this guy's going to be making fireworks in Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence is going to need it's a prove-it year for him. I know he only played 10 games last year. He had 11 touchdowns and 7 picks, so he's going to need to play a full season. If he is, watch out. Brian Thomas Jr. will have an even better year.
Yeah, he shocked the world. I was expecting it to be a solid rookie season. A guy you can pick up in those, later rounds of your draft, which I was able to do in our big league, and it really paid off because he was phenomenal last season. He really stepped into a somewhat ugly Jacksonville team, a team that, seemed to have a direction. Obviously, Doug Peterson gets fired, and they bring in Liam Cohen, who I'm really excited about. I mean, Liam Cohen was able to coach up Baker Mayfield to have a career season last year, and now you have a guy who you could argue is having a similar, career story. A guy who was the first overall pick and has underwhelmed, and now he gets a new coach, and you're hoping for a step up. And I think Trevor Lawrence could definitely do that. And if he's able to step up, Brian Thomas Jr. is an absolute great pick. Last year, obviously, Brian Thomas Jr.'s best games were with Mac Jones, but I wouldn't worry that, getting Trevor Lawrence is going to make him go down at all. Yes, Travis Hunter is added to the equation in the receiver room for this team, but they got rid of Evan Ingram, they got rid of Christian Kirk, and I think that Hunter, as much as he is there, and he is actually a really, really good wide receiver, I don't expect Brian Thomas Jr. His targets to go down. I think it's going to be kind of the same season we had last year, and with that, it's a great value here in the mid to late second round. I think he's a great play at wide receiver 8. I have him at wide receiver 9, so I'm right there with you. I'll throw it to you, though, since you have our next guy, A.J. Brown at 9.
Yeah, Justin, A.J. Brown has been really good since he got into Philadelphia there. I just think it's a no-brainer that he should be at least mentioned in this top 10. I mean, yeah, he's not a guy that people are rushing to get, as early as the second round. But if you can get him in the second or even a third round, really, I think that's going to be a really big steal there. I mean, he's a big play. He's a big playmaker there. And Jalen Hurts is going to find him. I know Jalen Hurts only had about barely, not even 3,000 yards passing. But still, A.J. Brown's going to get his there. He was able to break 1,000 yards last year. He did only play 13 games. I know he missed a few games. But he still had 7 touchdowns, 1,000 yards. He had 97 targets. I know we're expecting a Devontae Smith monster year here very soon. It's going to happen within this season or next season. But for the time being, A.J. Brown is a solid wide receiver as they come, Justin. I mean, really, ever since he got to the league, he was really good in Tennessee as prize, out of Ole Miss. And Justin, out of his 6 seasons, only 1 season he did not get 1,000 yards, and that was in 2021. So his rookie year, he was over 1,000. 2020, over 1,000. He has been able to score 5 or more touchdowns. So he had 8, 11, 5, 11, and then last 2 years he's had 7 each. I mean, this is a guy that's gone over 1,000 yards. He gets you a 90 to 95 plus targets a year. It's not really talked about a lot, but Justin, he's literally the only season he really didn't get 1,000 yards was 2021 when he only played 13 games. This past season, he's in a better offense. He played 13 games and still was able to get 1,000 yards. He had a touchdown in the Super Bowl. So this is a guy that's still a number 1 there. And so I love A.J. Brown there. I think it's a little bit criminal if you don't mention him just once in the top 10 fantasy list.
I completely agree with you. I have him at 10. So I would be talking about him shortly. And I think the only thing that is his downside is that the Eagles just didn't pass it last year. They were very heavily with Saquon Barkley, but I am on the belief that this Eagles team is going to throw it more this year. I think that with Kevin Patullo at offensive coordinator and with them knowing that if they give Saquon Barkley near 400 touches again, he's going to get hurt throughout the process, and they need him for another Super Bowl run. And I think with A.J. Brown, he took somewhat of a backseat last year. Devonta Smith was really solid last year, and then obviously, as I mentioned, Saquon Barkley being just everything, being Superman on the field. I think A.J. Brown knows that this year, he's like, give me some of the reins. I think it's my turn. I mean, he's one of the best, red zone wide receivers. He can get a bunch of touchdowns this year. I think that number of 7 the last 2 years is going to go up to about 10. And then, I believe that this team is going to pass more. They just have to this season, and I think it's going to be great. And if you look at their division, 6 of their games, they play the Commanders, bad secondary. They play the Cowboys, who, their defense has really, gotten worse. I think another plus matchup for A.J. Brown. And then with the Giants, their secondary is not good. Their defensive line is really solid, but I think A.J. Brown's going to be able to take advantage of all those matchups. I expect A.J. Brown to have a really good year this year. And as long as he's healthy, I mean, he's in line for over 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns. I'd be happy with him. If I decide to go, running back early, I'm fine with him being my wide receiver 1. I know he doesn't offer the upside of, Nabers and Nacua and Nico. I don't think he's going to be the wide receiver 1, but I think he's safe to be a top 10 wide receiver in 2025. We'll move to our last guy you have at number 10, and it is Tyreek Hill. Go ahead.
Yeah, Justin, I feel like it's not really time to give up on Tyreek Hill just yet. I feel like, last year was a little bit of a down year. I understand that. But, Tua Tagovailoa did miss a good amount of the season last year. I'm hoping he doesn't miss him out this year. And, 2 years ago, he was one of the top receivers in the league. Even his first year in Miami, he was a top, receiver in the league. This is one of his first seasons in his career where he did not hit 1,000 yards. He only had 959 with 6 touchdowns. I do believe that he's going to have a bounce back year. There was a little bit of drama at the end of, last year, pretty much him saying I'm out kind of thing. And so, his first 2 years in Miami, he was phenomenal. He had 1,700 yards his first year in Miami. And his second year, he almost had 1,800. He was aiming for 2,000 those seasons. This year, I expect him to have the same expectations. And so, if Tua plays the whole year, I think that this offense is going to get back to going. Not to mention our running backs episode, we talked about A-Chain. And I feel like if this offense can all stay healthy, all stay together, I think that Tyreek Hill will be number 10 for sure on the finish this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's really tough. It's really tough to bet against Tyreek Hill. I mean, he is a absolute game changer. Prior to last year, he was going as, in some leagues, the number 1 overall pick last season because he just offers big play, ability like Jamar Chase we saw last year do. Like, he can go for a 60-yard touchdown and then another 60-yard touchdown And then he has that game against Tampa Bay where he had like over 200 yards in the first half. Like, he has that ability. Now he is a year removed from that because that was, a year removed from being a top wide receiver. Last year was kind of a disaster.
Yeah.
But I am unfortunately kind of on the bad side for him just because I look at this Dolphins team and I don't believe in it. I just think that they're trying to throw the same thing at a wall and hoping that it sticks, and it's not going to. I think teams figured them out last year. I think they really, they understood, hey, as long as we cover deep and keep it contained, the Dolphins aren't going to be able to beat us, and it worked. And they've returned all the same team, the same coaches, the same play callers, and that's why I had doubt for Tyreek Hill. But I could look really dumb with that take in a handful of weeks because Tyreek Hill is a beast. Last year maybe he was just out of it. He was playing through that wrist injury. And you move into this year, they lose Jonnu Smith, or they trade away Jonnu Smith, so those targets are up for grabs. I have a lot of it going to Devon Achane, but Tyreek Hill is just so good. You can't doubt him, even though I am doubting him. He's getting a little bit older. There's definitely negatives here, but the positives are there. The positives are Tyreek Hill is, just a year ago was the best wide receiver in football, you could argue. And so that makes it really tough for me. I'm more than not I'm not picking him at his spot in the mid-third round. But maybe if he drops a little, I'll be more apt to do it. But I completely understand your ranking here at 10 for Tyreek Hill. But Dween Nation, those are our top 10 wide receivers. We've already had our top 10 running back episode, top 10 tight end episode, and top 10 quarterback episode. We'll discuss more of like 11 through 20, as well as discussing our sleepers and our bust picks and our league winners. That's probably our biggest episode of the year, are my guys. And then obviously more and more before the season gets underway. Super excited to do more of that stuff with you, my brother Genoa. Dween Nation, keep listening to us. Keep staying tuned. We love having you guys as our audience. Drop your thoughts, comments, all of the above. Stay tuned to our TikTok. We post there daily. So stay tuned for that. But thank you guys for listening. And Genoa, send us out.
Yo, Dween Nation. This was our top 10 wide receivers going into this fantasy year. We're so excited for the season. I cannot stress that enough, man. I know a lot of you guys may have been drafted already or going to draft. So, go ahead and let us know what you think about going this year, man. We're so excited, man. Another season is around the corner, man. So we love you guys. Thank you for watching. And as always, peace.